Many feel as though the conflict with Iran is something new, but if you look back at history, you start to realize that there's always been a little bit of tension. If the US does decide to invade this country, what would the consequences be, and who would we be going up against? From their elite special forces to some sticky hostage situations, today we're going to talk about some things you need to know about Iran.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm your host, American Eye, keeping an eye on everything you want to know.
Number 10. An invasion. It's likely that even the US, with trillions of dollars spent on their military, would run out of resources before being able to conquer Iran. Only 4% of Iran is green land, while the rest of it is made up of waterfalls, snowy mountains, and it's right in the heart of the Middle East. This means that they might have some serious backup. It's a very patriotic country who will fight to the end if they need to. China has also allied themselves with Iran since Iran supplies them with quite a bit of oil. Whoever does decide to go in there would likely have to deal with much more advanced forces than America has seen before recently. Saddam Hussein attempted an invasion of Iran, which basically ended up in him exhausting all of his resources. It's not just the sheer size and terrain of Iran, but also they have elite hackers who've wreaked havoc on classified information here in the US. So who knows what they know about us? Number 9. Robert Levinson. The FBI is currently offering anywhere from $5 million to $25 million if you are somehow able to give information leading to the return of Robert Levinson. This man was working as a private investigator in the country of Iran, traveling to Quiche Island. He was also working on behalf of many large corporations. He was a retired FBI agent who is likely still alive and being held hostage by his captors until they meet a certain set of demands. A proof of life video was recorded that we see here after being captive for 3.5 years. He claims that a group that's holding him hostage is making demands from the US government that haven't been met yet. He's running out of diabetes medicine and there hasn't been an update on his condition since it was released. He is now the longest held hostage in American history, and no one really seems to be willing to hand him over. There's no way of knowing whether or not he's been moved to the mainland of Iran, but we know our drones are trying to figure it out without getting shot down. The reward was recently raised from $1 million to $5 million for the safe return of Robert Levinson. But if you play your cards right, you might be able to get $25 million. To keep yourself updated, you can always check out the webpage helprobertlevinson.com. Number 8. Not allowed in Antarctica. Rothschild banks exist in almost every country around the world, but there are still a few countries who oppose central banking in their country. Some of the countries that opposed the idea in the past included Afghanistan, Venezuela, and Iraq. And guess what happened to those countries? The only countries that are not allowed in Antarctica are North Korea, Iran, Syria, and Cuba. Notice anything in common? The countries that have opposed central banking in their countries are often targeted by the media for being rogue countries who oppose democracy. The countries that are allowed in the southernmost continent are typically a part of the UN nations and also have signed some agreements with the laws there. Presidents of our country in the past who were opposed to Federal Reserve banking included John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. And we know it didn't turn out too well for them either. We're sure Americans would enjoy westernizing Iran if they get the chance, and it was one of their objectives during Operation Ajax. Number 7. Iranian Green Berets. The Iranian Special Forces have some good sense and fashion when it comes to picking out a good color beret. Also known as the 65th Airborne Special Forces, Iran proved to be a difficult country to invade during the Iran-Iraq War. That was partially thanks to these elite special forces. In 1953, Iran received paramilitary training from France, and they eventually evolved since that point of time to becoming a force that the US doesn't want to deal with. You would assume that the US and NATO would be more careful about who they train in advanced warfare tactics. A lot of their upbringing is similar to the US standards, being trained specifically in hostage rescue, counterterrorism, reconnaissance, and in various different environments. During the summer, this brigade will actually train in the jungles of Kurlardasht, which is typically a cooler temperature during this time of year. During wintertime, they might migrate to a ski resort called Imamzada Hashem, where they might deal with some harsh snowy conditions. Number 6. Operation Merlin. So sometimes cool secret spy missions don't always go as planned, and they can backfire just a smidge. The Americans found a banished Russian nuclear scientist to join them on their games for this one. During the Clinton administration, they had a few problems on their hands. Iran was trying to develop nuclear weapons, and the US wanted to make it a little bit difficult. So they concocted a plan to throw off the Iranians by creating blueprints with flaws in the design. In order to make it seem like legitimate blueprints, they put some realistic information on it. Then they wanted this Russian guy to hand over the blueprints to the Iranians. Where could this have possibly gone wrong? When the Russian scientist finally arrived to Iran, he really didn't see any reason to stay loyal to the Americans anymore. In fact, he looked over the blueprints and pointed out all the deliberate flaws the Americans were trying to hand off to them. They even were able to learn some advanced ways to create nuclear technology. Anyway, to sum it up, we're not sure why they trusted a Russian, and Iran now has nuclear weapons. Partially because we gave this guy an instruction. Way to go. Maybe we should give some fake blueprints to North Korea? No, don't do it. Number 5. Hostage situation, Tehran. A diplomatic breakdown occurred with the US and Iran in November of 1979, when 52 American diplomats were held hostage for 444 days. Iran had actually accused the embassy to be a spy den for the CIA. Americans tried to recover the hostages during Operation Eagle Claw using military force. But this epically failed when the helicopter crashed into a transport vessel. Eventually, help from Canada was able to extract a few hostages, but not all of them. The embassy was occupied by students who supported the overthrow of the political puppet known as the Shah. This leader was put there by Westerners who would typically agree with the US and the UK while punishing dissidents. Eventually, some agreements had to be made which sent the Shah into exile into Egypt. This also put power into the hands of the Ayatollah Khomeini instead. The whole thing might have led to some peace if the Iranians hadn't uncovered some documents which proved that the diplomats were actually working for the CIA. Number 4. Iranian embassy siege, London. Tehran wasn't the only embassy hostage crisis that took place, and it wouldn't be the last. This one was a little bit more effective, and they needed the help from the British Special Air Service. These guys are without a doubt one of the most secretive and elite special military forces around the world. While much of this organization is shrouded in mystery, the public did finally see what they were capable of during a hostage situation in May of 1980. This was where 26 people were being held captive at the Iranian embassy in South Kensington. After a gunman took the life of a hostage, the SAS was called in to do work. 25 of 26 hostages were rescued, and 5 of the 6 hostage takers were killed, while the other one was captured. Number 3. The Coons. References to this group of militants can date back to at least the Bush administration. They claim that they were providing IEDs to harm our troops. A group of extremists known as the Coons are known for being very skilled in bomb making and provided much support to anyone at war with the Americans. It's believed that they're also responsible for funding assistance movements in Lebanon, Palestine, Yemen, Syria, and Afghanistan. It's a subdivision of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and thought to be an elite group of about 10,000 or so special forces. In October of 2018, Saudi Arabia and Iran led a group to invade Yemen, but they came across a group of Coons and their allies known as the Houthis. Not long after, they were declared a terrorist organization, which meant their leader Qasem Soleimani was on their hit list. Yemen has been home to an essential proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran for quite some time now. Just recently in 2020, that leader was struck by a drone strike, which has led to much outrage. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments section if you think Trump should invade Iran. Number 2. The Gulf of Oman incident. As we all know, the Persian Gulf is home to a lot of black gold, and this body of water is home to many supertankers which haul a ton of this resource on board. Since everyone wants to catch a piece of the pie, it's led to many conflicts, including the Iran-Iraq War during the 1980s. The Persian Gulf and its coastal waters are the world's largest single source of petroleum. While the Americans and the Saudis would probably like it all for themselves, the Iranians are putting up a fight. In June of 2019, 2 oil tankers were sabotaged near the Strait of Hormuz that were apparently sailing through international waters. The ship belonged to a Norwegian oil company and was carrying petroleum products on board from the United Arab Emirates. Footage was released which apparently showed Iranians placing mines on the ship. Tensions began to flare up even more once an American drone was shot down that might have been a little bit too close to Iranian airspace. And number 1, Iranian sleeper cells. So as we can imagine, Iran's gonna strike us back somehow, but kind of like that guy that pranked you in high school, you're just not sure of when or where they're gonna do it. Iran is a powerful country with lots of resources and could potentially attack us when we least expect it. While America tends to let people from Iran into our country, Iran doesn't really allow for Americans to go over there. This might make some people a little bit suspicious. There are more than a dozen Brits and Americans who are imprisoned in this country, and you better believe that their government is using that as some kind of leverage. You can probably expect to see the US denying some visas from this country in the near future. But if there's anything we can expect in 2020, it's lots of protests, some civil unrest, and all kinds of political drama. So get some popcorn out and get ready for the apocalypse if you haven't already.
Whoa, now that was a cool video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.